Hello friends and welcome to the Patreon show for March 2023. I want to start this one off with a clip because you've all been incredibly patient with us getting back to in-studio filming. I know we did the big Crystal Dynamics documentary, but talking about contemporary games, visiting the biggest studios in the world, that's kind of one of the biggest things we were known for, and it took a little while to get back to doing some of those. Like I said in the update at the start of the year, I said, look, we're going to pull back from doing a lot of those. We're going to focus on deeper stories and more unknown things and older games and stuff like that, but it didn't mean that we weren't doing them at all anymore. And one of the reasons why I wanted to say that was because at the time we were working on this documentary all about The Last of Us Part 1. We've just finished it. We will have a hugely early access window for everyone. You'll get it a week before it hits public. And we're also going to do a bunch of extended interviews from this, but without rambling anymore, here is a clip from our upcoming documentary on the making or the remaking of The Last of Us Part 1. Enjoy.
In the original game, for one, we could only have 8 NPCs alive at a time. So it's kind of a smoke and mirrors thing, but as you're playing the game, we're constantly, if you move through the space in certain ways, having to unload enemies behind you, load in enemies in front of you. If you backtrack, do the opposite. We do some smoke and mirrors to make the spaces feel more populated than they actually are. That wasn't a limitation that we had to respect on the PS5. We could have more NPCs alive at the same time. Though truthfully, sometimes we did use that same kind of technology just because in terms of pacing, particularly infected encounters, if you had all the infected spawned at the same time, they would all just kind of mob at you and attack you all at once. The AI that we've developed in the years since is much better at reacting to how the player moves. So in the original game, let's say you were pushing up through a space and you were kind of taking a right corridor through a space. The technology that we had back then basically meant that the combat scripter had to go in and say, oh, the player's going this way? Well, I'll assign one NPC to flank them this way. I'll assign one NPC to hold this point. You need a lot of hand scripting to kind of react to what the player was doing because the AI didn't have this larger sense of spatial analysis and that sort of thing. Some of the technology we've developed in the years since is to be able to be a lot less didactic about exactly what the AI is going to do. Instead, what you're putting into the space is okay, this is a strong position to hold, and this is a strong position to hold, but whether or not you use those positions is kind of be up to the player's position, the NPC's position, the coordination between NPCs, different NPCs pushing up and holding positions, that sort of thing. Overall, what that'll mean is if you play the encounter 10 different ways, the AI should react in 10 different ways. It should really pick angles that you weren't expecting. We can do much more sophisticated analysis of we have this exposure map and being able to do path cost functions that take into account the exposure. The buddy NPCs benefit from this tremendously, where they can use, we have this concept of future exposure, where they can say, okay, in 2 seconds, this NPC is moving this way, what will they be able to see in 2 seconds? Oh, they're about to expose this corner, I better move around the cover and get hidden from that. And that was directly the benefit of being able to start with the buddy AI that we developed for The Last of Us Part 2 that was so far beyond what we'd done on previous games. Because effectively the way that the buddy AI works is the buddy is constantly testing all the different positions around the player, all the different positions that they could be hanging out, and thinking, well, what score should I give to each one? There's different parameters. This one's on screen, so that's good, so I'll be visible to the player. But this one's kind of in danger. That one's kind of far from the player. And being able to balance all those different considerations and be able to make intelligent choices, all that benefits tremendously from more advanced hardware, because you can just do more and more tests, more and more sophisticated logic to, in the end, create this buddy that just feels like a real person. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if your buddy mathematically picked the best position possible and you could prove it that this position was the right one to go to. It's, do they feel like a real person? Because if they feel like a real person, then you're going on a journey with them, and all the tech and the gameplay and whatever just washes away, and you're just there in this moment with Ellie, with Bill, with Sam, with whoever, and you're dealing with the same kind of fear and tension of this moment that they're having.
huge team effort on that one. Frank did an awesome job capturing so much footage for it. Jeremy put a bunch of time into building the initial cut of it, and that really freed me up to be playful with it and craft something that I think is incredibly watchable. It feels like our Black Mesa documentary in that it's kind of one that's like hard to put down. It's about 50 minutes long, super tight. It feels like it's 20 minutes, and hopefully people will really love it. But I also want to announce another documentary. This game was good. They remastered it a few years ago. You've probably known that if you listen to our podcast, because I'm always talking and playing Age of Empires. This is also a game, at least this old version, was one of the ones that keeps being the bridesmaid on greatest hits. It never seems to win, much like Unreal Tournament. So I've always wanted to do something in Age of Empires, and in the past I thought about reaching out about Definitive Edition, but never really had the right moment to do it. And then Microsoft reached out to us and they were like, yo, this game's coming out on console. We know you're big fans. Are you interested in talking to some of the folks over here about it? So we did. We recorded some interviews with the leads on the sort of big Microsoft initiative to remake not just Age of Empires 2, but Age of Empires 1, Age of Empires 3, and of course they also released Age of Empires 4, and now they're working on, is it Age of Mythology? I think they're doing some new version of that. So we did a great interview with the two of them. Jesse's cutting it up at the moment. We're filming loads of gameplay. We're filming loads of boxes. And I'm just bringing years of Age of Empires 2 love and lore to that project. And we will have a fantastic documentary all about the remaking of Age of Empires 2. We do cover sort of all of the Age of Empires games and how they were remade. It's a little bit like the Command and Conquer one, where we sort of talk about the process of how they went about doing that. They've supplied us with some cool sort of behind the scenes stuff. And yeah, it's going to be a great celebration of Age of Empires and of that Definitive Edition project. So I'm very excited to also get that one out. Our other documentary, which is in production and nearing the end, which Jesse also did an awesome job putting together the assembly cut, is our Vampire Survivors documentary. You may have seen the video of the puppet. We put it up on the main channel just for fun, I guess. We don't put enough like sort of announcements about documentaries anywhere on that main channel, so that was kind of like it was like kind of made for crew, but then I was like, it kind of works on the main channel, so we'll try that one out. So that was fun. I am currently in the process of filming the puppet for the Vampire Survivors doc, so excited to get that one up too. Couple of updates on projects that are a little bit in no man's land. The Wipeout documentary, I think I told you I interviewed Tim Wright, Cold Storage, all about the music of that project, and he gave me a lot of information about what it was like working at the company back in the day, Signosis, and you know the people who were there and the influences in Wipeout and things like that. I had a bunch of other people, including the guy from Designers Republic, lined up for interviews, but they've largely ghosted me at this stage. I've reached out one more time to try it, and if they don't get back to me, what I'm actually going to do is just do a documentary about the music of Wipeout 2097, because the interview with Tim was fantastic, and he also does talk about the project in sort of wider terms as well, so it's not like it would be just specifically about the music, but I'm a huge fan of that sort of era of music. I'm a big fan of bands like Left Field and Orbital and Future Sounds of London, and of course Tim himself, Cold Storage, The Prodigy. So to me, that was actually like a very interesting conversation to have, just about the style and sound of that game and how important it was in the success of Wipeout XL, Wipeout 2097, and of course the original Wipeout and Wipeout 3 as well. So I'm going to reach out, but we're not going to wait around. If that doesn't come together, I don't want it to be like a lot of projects that have happened in the past where we've just had to sit on them forever because we haven't had enough interviews. I want to get something cool up about Wipeout, so I'll give you an update on that. The other update, sadly, is on the Blu-ray for Hades. So it's still going ahead, but if you've been watching these updates, you know that I've been putting a lot of work into trying to like watch, you know, we re-edited them, we submitted them, we changed the captions a bunch, we had a bunch of rounds of like viewing them, and then we had a company, Supergiant had a company, they're organizing that side of it to produce it, and we had some Blu-rays arrive, and I had to watch the whole series, you know, to check it for errors, and there was like a couple of editing errors, but not really, which I fixed, and then there was just a lot of skipping, like the tracks kept skipping, and I was like, why is that fucking happening? Like, I didn't send you video files that are skipping, so I don't know why that's happening. So I listed down on this very notepad, like all the different places it was skipping, and submitted it to them, and then they sent another one out with those few editing changes in it. and that was about a month ago, and there was all new skipping in it. So I was kind of like talking to JP over at Supergiant and being like, yeah, I don't know, man, it's just the skipping. Like, did they not know what's going on with the skipping? Like, did they not recognize this? And then I don't know, they seem to think that they didn't have a reason or anything for why it was happening, and I think ultimately we sort of JP got a little bit sort of less confident maybe with using those. The last thing we wanted to do was put out a product that was going to end up not working, or like have these like episode 3 was barely watchable because of the amount of skips in it. So if we couldn't sort of trust them to send the proper like near final copy of the thing without having errors in it, I don't think we were like super confident about them mass producing it. Ultimately, this was Supergiant's call, and they made the call not to do it. So we're currently basically shopping around for alternatives. The good idea, or the good point, is that we have the design of the box, the design of the menus. I hope we can keep those. I think we can. I'm not quite sure. The movies, the videos themselves, the files themselves, all that sort of stuff is a-okay. So look, we've all tried our best. I've put a load of time into this process. I know Supergiant has as well. It's been over a year now, basically, of us trying to get this thing together. It just goes. It's why we do crowdfunding and why we don't do like commercial documentary production. That's why NoClip was set up this way, is to like lean on fair use and just don't worry about shit like this, because it just, with anything like this, it has the opportunity to spiral out of control and take forever. So apologies. We've really tried I've tried my best. I was super disappointed when I found out that we weren't going ahead with it, because I thought we were at the end of the tunnel. So I'll have updates when I'm fairly confident it's still happening, and we're trying our best to make it happen. Hades 2 is in production now as well, so there's still a lot of like love for Hades, and it's not like it's an old game now and no one will want that. I think it'll still be worthwhile doing, but just a little bit of an update on that, and a little bit of a disappointing one. And that's basically it for this week. I am out of here all next week. I am going back to Polesba, back up to Kitsap County, Washington, to film the Dwarf Fortress documentary and our video on Choo Choo Charles. And I think I'm also going to do something with Stephen Kick and Night Dive on the drive home, because he's in the Oregon area. I think he's been doing something with his PC game collection, so I want to go film that, because he has a ridiculous collection. And maybe we'll talk about System Shock, I don't know, we'll see. But that's happening. In case you didn't remember, back in December was the original time we we're going to do it. I got COVID. Then we were supposed to go last month, and they got COVID. So that's an update. They got sick, and we thought it was something else, like RSV or something. It is subsequently, I was talking to Tarn, and he was like, no, actually that was COVID. So some of them did, some of them didn't, but it was enough that I was like, all right, I'll cancel the trip. So Tarn and Zach were at DICE last week, and don't seem to have gotten COVID. So I've been emailing Tarn to be like, are we good? We're good? We're good? All right, we're going. So fingers crossed I will be there on for most of next week, filming up there, producing those cool videos, and then I'm going to do Dwarf Fortress, and Jeremy's going to do Choo Choo Charles. So it's a fun time. We've loads of stuff coming out, and to say nothing about the tapes. The tape project, we're going to do a big fundraising about the tapes, but another one of the decks turned up today. I've become a VCR repairman, trying to get some of this stuff worked and captured. And we're going to do a big funding push on the tapes. Probably not this month. It'll probably have to be next month now, because we're so busy. But that'll be good. And yeah, we kind of need it. Where our funding is back to like pre-pandemic levels. Arguably, we're not running in the green at the moment a little bit, because everyone's work, during the pandemic, I basically sort of created a lot of work for everyone, and made it so we're doing a lot more, taking the load off of me basically on the projects, so that we can make better projects, so they're not coming out scrappy near the end, and also frankly, so that everyone was okay during COVID, when work was hard to come by that wasn't hazard work for video producers. And with the economic pinch that's happening at the moment, I'm not exactly in a position to roll back everyone's hours. I want to keep where we are at the moment, but obviously with the lower funding we have at the moment, it's starting to pinch a little bit. So we definitely need to do a funding drive sooner rather than later to try and get that back up. So that's I'm always transparent with you folks here about all that stuff. If you're interested at all in the secret tape stuff, there is some projects going on. I've said I probably wouldn't, maybe not even mention secret tape on here, but what I will say is that the projects that are coming up on Secret Tape are almost all stuff we would never have done on NoClip, to the point where some of them aren't even really game related. We're getting a lot of pitches from like VC organizations about stuff that's kind of game related, but like we never would have done a video on any of this sort of stuff on NoClip because it's not related to games development or, you know, anything like that. We're getting pitched on like super long form stuff that we would never be able to afford. Like we kind of threw together the Supergiant stuff as well as we could without, you know, without like properly embedding somebody in a studio or something like that. So that's actually been a huge relief to me, because one of the biggest things that I worried about opening the Pandora's box of maybe doing some commercial work with the team and giving us that, basically giving the rest of the team the sort of security that I enjoy. Let's be honest and frank about it. Like, you know, at the end of the day, you know, I'm the one in power, I guess, of NoClip's funding. You know what I mean? Like, you all pay in. I try to be as incredibly honest and transparent and ethical about everything we do. And, you know, I don't think anyone who's worked for NoClip would say that we didn't pay well or fairly or on time to any of the contractors that are here. But at the end of the day, everyone else is a contractor, and it's not like we're bringing in that much money where we can have like full-time people with healthcare. And I would like to change that. And that was a big part of Secret Tape. And alongside that, I was like trying to do projects that were outside of the scope of what's on NoClip as well. And I will say it has been a relief that the first, like, you know, we've had game-related stuff pitched to us as well, but it's also stuff that like we would never have done on NoClip for one or two ethical reasons. So it kind of makes me feel better that these projects are like, oh yeah, if you pay us, we'll do that. Sure, that's fine. That's like a cool thing that you should have someone do. And yeah, we won't, you know, we'll do it, and we'll, you know, do a really good job of it. But it's not like somebody would come to us and go like, hey, I have an idea for NoClip. And then I'm like, hey, you know what? You know what would be even better? Come over here and pay us to do, you know what I mean? Which is what I was worried about. So that's been a huge relief, where there is a clear indication that like, oh, this is not something that would ever go on NoClip. Which is great, which was the biggest worry I had. And then the other thing on the ads, we had a big talk about ads. You may have noticed that we have not put ads on any videos this year. I'm not going to put ads on The Last of Us. After, you know, we made a bit of scratch off the ads at the end of last year, but I'm back to the point of thinking it's not really worth it. Like, it's not bringing in enough to justify it. So I'll do it on a case-by-case basis. And if one of our older videos blows up, like the Dwarf Fortress one, I don't really have a problem sticking on ads on a 3-year-old video that's suddenly going to get 1 million views out of nowhere. But I'm not feeling as, you know, into you know, the fact that I've just talked about 2 financial things about how difficult it is in the economy and get everyone on, but like I don't think the ads are bringing in enough to really move that boat anymore. We'll see. It's on a case-by-case basis, but you may have noticed that the Gloomwood documentary and what was it, the Hyperlight episode 2 did not have ads on it, because I knew that there are indie games that are not going to get huge, you know, and I don't want to have that barrier. And The Last of Us one, we could throw a load of ads on and it might do really well, but I'm not going to at the start. Maybe after a couple of weeks, maybe, if it's doing well, we'll do that, but I don't really know if it's going to make that much of a dent, and I would rather keep to our values as much as, if we can keep to the values, I would like to keep to the values. So that's it. All right, that's a patron thing. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're keeping well. These are continue to be strange times we find ourselves in. I'm very excited to be getting the studio stuff, like a good project like The Last of Us. We have other ones lined up as well. We've had some international interest again, which has been, with the amount of like cancellations due to COVID and like the costs that we incur when that happens. You know, I've been doing a lot of like getting air mileage back, or, you know, booking hotels that I can cancel 24 hours beforehand, but there's still been some loss in there somewhere. So with that, when it comes to international travel, I'm a little bit trepidatious about it, but we might have some in the summertime. We might have some international travel. There's some cool studios that people have wanted us to do for a long time. I won't say any more, that might be on the cards. So kind of hard not to do it when that happens, so we'll have to wait and see. Extended cuts to Last of Us stuff, early access and all that in the $10 tier. We'll have a big production meeting as well soon. There's a lot to talk about for the producers. Thanks to our Battle Pass holders as ever. You're all the best. I can almost read your names out off the top of my head right now, but I won't because I'll probably forget somebody. Cameron Lad, I won't though. Sorry. Or Tohir Tiliev. Tohir, your videos are awesome, by the way. I don't know if I ever told you that. His YouTube channel is all about creators. It's very fun. I watch a lot of his stuff. Yeah, that's it. Stunt Derby as well. If you want your key, ask us. We're doing a 100-person playtest tomorrow, which is probably when this video is going up. So it might not be on time if I set this up on a Friday. Grab your key and come play with us. We're going to try and get 100 people. Stunt Derby's coming along. We're talking to publishers, trying to get some moolah for that too. I have too many fucking jobs. This is what you have to do though. Diversify. It's what I was told from my business mentor. Diversify what you're doing. All I want is for Stunt Derby to sell 1 million copies and for us to get 3 big clients for Secret Tape, and then everyone will be full-time. We'll get a huge fucking office. We'll be like 100 Thieves or someone. We'll have a fucking cool office with streaming and a podcast studio and 15 arcade machines, and we'll invite patrons over to come drink and eat pizza and play video games. That's the fucking dream. It's going to happen. All my dreams come true eventually. I'm very stubborn about that. Thank you for supporting these dreams. Cool documentaries on the way. Talk to you again soon. Bye.